Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins. I'm the host, and I'm here with Jane Scharf and a panel of people that are yet to be here. Some will be coming along as we get started, and I'm going to hit the go on Rockfin. So if anybody would like to go over there, then you're most welcome. That is my most reliable channel. It's the place that you're going to find the most of my archives right now since my YouTube was eliminated. And I also want to say before we get started that I recently gave an interview, pardon me, I recently gave a workshop at an Acapulco, an event in Mexico that is all truth and freedom oriented, if you are not familiar. And so I am gifting my workshop recording, the stage recording, that crappy stage recording that I made, but it's still audible, to anybody that would like to hear it. And it also comes along with the 30 signs. They're now 30. I edited them down so that there's nothing repetitive in there. And I'm just going to share this link in the chat. And if you can't find it in a chat because we're on a different platform or something, then just message me my contact page at my website. So this will be the archetypes of controlled op, the 8 that I've named, the 30 signs of controlled op that I have already myself put out. There are the 3 interviews that I've already done. I'm going to be putting this interview up there. And then I'm also going to be teaching people something that I consider to be extremely important, is how to deprogram the opposition, not to just wrestle and fight with it out there in the world, but to remove the opposition inside yourself. Because to me, the goal of this is to function and to be able to create and work and have a clear head. And without the ability to have a clear head, you are not going to be a straight shooter. So without further ado, first of all, welcome, Jane. I'm so happy to have you here. And thank you for all your assistance in getting this panel together.
Well, I'm glad to be here too. And this is, I think, an extremely important topic. And one thing I'm glad with is now there's more people listening to this topic. At the beginning, at the beginning of COVID, if you said communism, people would go, "Come on," even in the so-called, informed people, they would think, "Oh, that's silly. This is Canada. There's no communism here." And now people are like, "Whoa, what's that you're saying?" And they're much more and much more free to enter in the conversation. And of course, there's silliness that goes on. There's some people that just use that as a term. If they want to discredit somebody, they just pull it out of a bag and throw it. But this is not what we're going to do today. We're going to be very specific about the strategies, and they're age-old communist strategies, starting in the 1800s, mid 1800s, with the Communist Manifesto. Just spelled it right out. And since then, you can see them acted out in other countries, and you can see the procedures being exercised here, going back to at least with Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Probably before that, but I don't know about anything before that. But after that, very clearly with our charter, that leaves a hole to undermine our rights with Section 1. And
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
and he attacked our the culture that we had, our Christian culture. He got rid of Lord's Day. Okay, that was one. And Dominion of Canada was the name of this country, Dominion of Canada. And he had to get rid of that because that's got a Christian connotation to it. And Psalms, I forget, what's 83 or something. I maybe got the number wrong, but it's a dominion from sea to sea. Like God or Jesus has dominion from sea to sea. So you had to get rid of that word, and got rid of the crosses. They got rid of the Lord's Day, Lord's Prayer. I mean, Lord's Day and the Lord's Prayer, and all of that has to be seen as a systematic attack on our Judeo-Christian base. Our country has a Judeo-Christian base, which made us one of the finest countries in the world in terms of commitment to equality and justice and fairness. And it was all in our system of law. Like every decision of the government is supposed to be fair and reasonable. Well, where did that go?
Yeah.
It's still there. I mean, legally it's still there, but it's not respected because communists don't want to have to, comply with anything like that. They want to be able to just dictate whatever they want to dictate for whatever reason. They don't want to justify it in terms of fairness or reasonableness or anything else like that. And they don't want you to have rights either. So
Sounds good.
that's what we're on about. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. So we do have Vee's here in the waiting room, Vee Gandhi and Jason from Truth Authority. And hello to everybody in the chat. Welcome. I'm glad you're here, whether you're on Rockfin or Rumble or X is also live if you're over there. And also Facebook, can see a few of you. Hello, Heather. Nice to Heath, maybe. Nice to see you. So we're going to bring on Vee Gandhi. Welcome. Nice to see you. If you have any way to turn your camera sideways, that's always fantastic to get a whole image. And Jason is here as well. So we're still waiting potentially for Matt Unceded and Normtravers. So we'll see who comes on, but we're here now. So it's really good. Thank you everyone for being here. And so Vee's going to maybe try to change his camera. That's all right.
My phone won't turn sideways today, unfortunately.
It just won't do it. That's okay. Yeah, there's a setting, but I don't know how to get you there quickly. So that's all right. We'll just live with it. And so we're going to be talking about controlled op, which has become a fascination for me, not because I like it, just because I'm a pattern hunter and I see things that people don't necessarily see. So let's see, we'll bring Vee back on this way, and it's about the same. So that's
thank you.
Yeah, that's all right.
Can you guys hear me? Anyone hear me? I just bought a new microphone earphone.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. I didn't get ripped off. Great.
Yeah, no, you did. You did. You know what is the best sound? Just a real quick hack for anybody that's wanting to broadcast with the decent sound is a set of a very simple Mac earbuds. They have way better sound than any piece of crap on the market right now. So they took their sound seriously. It's a very inexpensive way to get decent sound.
And they have a microphone on the Mac earbuds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, but that's okay. We can still hear you. So, all right. So we're going to get started. We're going to be talking about the Canadian law arena and how the controlled op has, an infestation tried to take people sideways in a lot of different ways. So Jane has a good plan. If you're not familiar with Jane Scharf, I'll introduce you to her. She has a history of dealing with controlled ops since just after 9/11, when the federal government passed the Anti Terrorism Act, which sets agents into the community to monitor for terrorism. Those agents call themselves Anti Fascist Movement, now have morphed into all the words we probably shouldn't say for the bots and all of that kind of thing. But you might know who is behind Black Lives, you know what. And so what these agents did from the beginning was to promote communist propaganda. For example, all cops are bastards. That's in Jane's language, I swear to. She began working on challenging the measures from the recent boogeyman virus. And almost from day one, she was there. And I'm a testament to that. I know I very affectionately, Jane, referred to you as a dog with a bone, and you're not letting go. That jaw is locked, and they can't get you to let go, which is fantastic. And then she's exposed many controlled op along the way. She wants to expose and jail the controlled opposition members of the Liberal executive for treason. In particular, you can visit her at trudeaufortreason.com. Hello, Sane Lady. Nice to see you. I'm glad you're here. She's also been very active in the law arena. I'll introduce quickly Vee Gandhi so you know who he is. He has a master's degree in political science, which has given him some skills to analyze the methodology used by the communist/corporate, putting those into the same category, attempting the takeover in Canada. He's coming to us from India, which I've been to 8 times, by the way. Vee, just so you know, I'm familiar with your country, where he's been trapped.
Beautiful.
Yeah, where he's been trapped since October over false allegations of tampering with his visa. He spent 2 months in jail under deplorable conditions. I can only imagine what a jail in India would be like. Even using the bathroom in India can be like jail. And so that's yeah, not everywhere, but a lot of places. And been advocating for the release of other prisoners after his release. Vee, along with Jane, successfully confronted a group of controlled op agents who infiltrated Castleman Camp, for which they were subject to violence. Currently he's currently organizing weekly Zooms as well. If you want to share any links, Vee, go ahead and I'll put them up on the stream here. And
certainly, I'll share some links. Okay.
Okay, and also Jason Etsey is here from Truth Authority. He is he's been creating videos on controlled op and psychological operations since the start of the pandemic. He's a big fan of the Canadian Bill of Rights, which we all are. I think we have that in common here, as well as he's studied the work of Dr. Shiva in detail. Dr. Shiva, who?
Dr. Shiva Adeduri I hope I didn't butcher his last name.
I don't have it, so that's why I was asking. And then Jason's style holds no barred approach, where he sets out to expose a suspected controlled op agent or psych op agent. He's been threatened and attacked in many ways for the work he does, but it doesn't deter him from his goal of saving this country from the corporate communism. And we should all be as persistent as Jane Sane Lady. Yes, true story. Exactly. And so I guess I'll save it just in case Matt and Norm aren't going to be here right away. I'll save that for later. And we could just go ahead and get into what Jane wanted to describe as the definition of communism. What exactly it, oh, so Patty's here. Did you know Patty was coming?
No. Oh, yes, I did invite her, but I thought she wasn't unable to. She had a really intense week, but sure.
Okay.
She has lots
okay.
to share on that.
If you can hear us, Patty. Oh, and somebody else with both devices not connected. So if you can hear us, hear me right now, you'll probably have to X out, leave the studio. And then when you go in, make sure to set your settings, your camera and your audio, because otherwise it's telling me you're not connected and nobody will be able to see or hear you. I hope you can hear that. Hopefully. If who would guest 100 be? I'm not familiar with anybody's handles.
No, unless it's Matt's. I didn't invite anybody else.
Okay. I didn't hear back from Matt, but maybe they can see. Yeah, it won't even let me. They need to connect their mic. So I'm going to kick them from the studio and hopefully they try again. Okay, and I'm going to kick the second one. So hopefully they get that information. And tried to set your mic and camera. Shoot, we're on the same side. Guess 100, we're on the same side. So we all know that now. Perfect. So they'll have to try again. Hopefully they'll get their settings right. And so we're going to dive in and look at how the communism is not a new thing at all. And in a way, it's to our favor, because then we're not looking for new patterns. We're just searching the same old patterns, and they're more obvious that way.
Yeah. Did you want me to start?
Sure. Go ahead, Jane.
Okay. I wanted to start to just give you a breakdown of a video. I believe it's in the links. If not, I can put it in the credits. It's a video that was made in 1964, and it kind of gives a broad brush of the communist strategy and their aims. And the first thing that they want to do, the first thing they set out to do, and they do it deliberately, like they'll send infiltrators into the country, and they call them sleepers, and they'll spend maybe 10-15 years kind of getting embedded in the community, and then they'll pop up in a prominent position, such as a preacher, and they will start to advocate for some sort of extreme position on some topic. And for example, one of the ones that I watched, their background, the first thing they did is they came out on the issue of spanking children and the issue of parents refusing medical treatment for their children on religious basis. And that's got an extreme, double edge. And, many more also go out to create that clash, what I call a clash. So it's disruption and appearance of like revolutionary, because if it gets into the streets, it looks like an uprising. And there's even between men and women, there was, I believe, a deliberate effort to create two extremes, like an extreme for women's rights on one side, which basically villainize all men, and the same thing on the other side for men who claim women's character is poor and whatever. And there's no resolution to that. They're both extreme, they're both nonsense, and they draw people in that are at different points of the same kind of issue, and then they just get it clashing. And
Exactly. I'll just quickly say I was very much victim to the feminist side, and when they said that it was men's fault for everything wrong in the world, I acted like that was my revelation, that I realized that, and that was the truth. So they did it to me from a very young age. I had that opinion. I'm better now. I just want you to know I healed from that.
Exactly. Well, most recently, I before I go through the list, just to follow up that thought, most recently you have the clash with a created clash between LGBTQ and Christian and Muslim on the other side. And the reason I believe that's deliberate is because on the one side, the LGBTQ side, they've created this concept that your children are in danger in the school of sexualization, and then they tie it together with LGBTQ, with these whatever incidents or whatever you want to call it at the libraries with basically cross-dressers. They're not trans, they're cross-dressers. They're not even in the LGBTQ, but they're still trying to make it a package and create a threat to your children. And they're trying to put it all together. But it's not LGBTQ that are doing that. It's the government under instruction from the World Health Organization. They've written it up and put it out that they want the children sexualized from a young age, groomed. And it's not LGBTQ. And the things that are happening in the school with regard to LGBTQ, they're also not initiated by them. This idea of having their flag, having their month or whatever, that's just creating, that's not promoting inclusiveness. It's creating animosity towards them and even hatred towards them. And then of course there's your seeds to the threat on one side, and then that sets off the other side who have an extreme position on LGBTQ, and then voila, there's your clash. And the clash has no purpose. It has no, they're not seeking solution. They're not seeking discussion. They're just clash. Like one hates the other, and mutual hatred. But exactly. it's the creation of it that is my concern. It's not just something that naturally evolves. It's systematically perpetuated.
Yes, so, and I'll just to echo that, that's a very big element. If you can learn the difference between something that organically comes up in culture through people's relationships and interactions compared to what is just imposed, right? So now you have a group called Gays Against Grooming, because they're saying like, no, we didn't create this. We're not advocating this. We're not a bunch of pedophiles or child predators. And so, yeah, it's not organic. And there's a lot of signs of it not being organic, usually in the branding itself, because there is a globalist brand.
The first group that I heard about was the Million Mile March to Save the Children, right? And I went on their Facebook and I posted on everybody that posted, I posted underneath, why are you using Save the Children? That's an international trademark name. That's an organization that's funded by the Clinton Foundation and been accused many times of being child traffickers. So they ended up changed the name, but kicked me off. So, and then after that, there was one woman that contacted me. She was interested in what I was trying to advocate, which I was trying to advocate that these sexualization programming that they're bringing in, the SOGI, has 3 criminal elements to it. And I made a flyer that outlined each criminal element, like dissemination of sexually explicit material to children, and the grooming, like you actually describe grooming, and it's definitely what they're doing, and it fits like a glove. And so I thought, instead of getting in this clash, they should be, if they want to save the children, they should be doing something constructive to, bring attention to the actual perpetrators and get some accountability going. So one woman was very interested, and she was one of the organizers. She joined to be like, there's a group across Canada, and she went to the meeting and they just booed her right out. They didn't want that. So anyways, okay, so I'll get onto this. This is from that 1964 film on communism, the phases or the stages of communism.
So just a very quick interruption. Sorry, Jane, but I want to welcome Normtravers here, and okay. I'll introduce you before you speak as well later. But Jane is just running through those signs of communism. Our guest 100s, who I still don't know who that is, apparently has no camera. So if anyone wants to message them, if you know them in this group and you want to just let them know they can come, audio only is fine.
Make sure they're not controlled opposition.
I know, but who else would have the link? Because we didn't share it publicly. No one else should have the link.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I just thought I would jump in. So go ahead,
okay,
please.
Okay. So the first thing they do is they want to divide people. So they create these divisive, like super divisive categories, like I talked about earlier. And then let me see now. And I described some of the categories already. And this is meant to weaken the country, weaken the community, and weaken the country, which makes it easier to take over. And then, so they want to destroy your social conditions that you've created. So whatever, like they even went after our social programs as a means of preparing and our whatever systematic efforts to equalize individuals and regions in Canada based on national standards. They undermined that because there was legislation to support that, and it was removed after free trade. And of course, the equality declined after that. We have one of the best distributions of power and wealth in the world. I think was amongst the top 3, and now, God, I can't even see where we are now. And of course, this weakens the country and makes it easier to take over. And they hide their aims when they're doing this behind, well, one tactic is to use, they want to create the first phase also, or the second phase is to create like a plan and get people behind the plan, and trust the plan is an important part of achieving what they're doing. So in the plan, it's sustainability, and everybody thinks, oh yeah, that's a good idea, we're going to sustain the planet, and inclusion and diversity, acceptance of diversity, all that. That's, and especially in Canada, those concepts were well received, but they're masking, like each one masks what they're doing, right? Like it just sounds nice on the surface, and they get people on a very superficial level to support that aim.
And I'll jump in here quickly and just say it's often the inversion. So they talk diversity, but what they really want is conformity
and division.
And division, exactly.
They want people all isolated and individual and controlled externally.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's the opposite. You're right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, messes your mind. I could use a bad word there, but
yeah,
less is more. I would just repeat, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, we are on censorable platforms. So in general, when you discuss things that might get censored, like the name of the boogeyman virus, or those kind of things, if you can use some euphemisms or anything else in place, just for fun, if I might be able to stay.
Yeah. Okay, then And then they want to take advantage of the rifts between the groups too, and solidify them going forward. And phase 2 is create the appearance of popular support. And the way they do that, they have approximately 1% of the population are consciously and trained and paid to bring about this communist revolution. And then what they do is they draw people in to these fake whatever programs and aims. And and Lenin, I think it was Lenin, said you need to take over the country by the assistance of people in the country. So you have to manipulate them and con them and bring them in. And it was relatively easy to do it in Canada because we did have a fairly high level of democracy and peace. Never perfect. We have skeletons, bad skeletons. I'm not trying to whitewash anything, but I mean relatively speaking, relative to other countries, even the United States, we had a better level of peace, and we had less crime. We had better sharing of wealth, better social programs. We had excellent social programs. They've been severely undermined, and our crime's gone up. Everything, as soon as they started their work, everything, like the apple cart, started to tip. So people can unwittingly be supporting it. So now, one of the terms they used to use was national liberation. And I was that's an old term, but the new terms are just basically freedom is one that's used in a very flat way. Like, what freedom? Like what are, if you're a freedom fighter or if you're involved in that movement, what is it exactly you're doing? That thing is kind of missing. And that's what they're aiming to do. They're aiming to sort of get a big group of people following them for not clear reasons, but based on everybody supports freedom. So that's a good handle for what
Yeah,
they're
it's
doing.
it's a crazy word in my world too, because I help people to deprogram and do the inner work of freedom. And everybody has a different definition of freedom, and you can't argue with it either. I
No.
can't just give them my definition of freedom. To me, freedom is actually synonymous with God and purpose. And it's not a vibration you can chase or attain through spiritual practices. It's not like that. It's there. But until people have their own experience of it, then you have to just go along with what they have and let them evolve in it. Anyway, that's my
Yeah.
2 cents on that.
Yeah, and the other word is unity. Everyone agrees that we're in a better position, politically and every other way, if we have unity. But the thing is, people don't even know what unity is. They like the term, they like the concept, and they don't really know how that plays out. How do you get unity? What is it? And in my
Jane,
view,
if I may say too, as you know, we don't want, as I've said this many times in speeches at times, we don't want fake unity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even Dr. Shiva said the word unity in some ways is a fucked up word, but I understand what you're trying to convey there.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So what I would say is supposed to be behind that is solidarity. And solidarity is I think it's a spiritual process, and there's certain ingredients that support it. And integral behavior is part of it. Respect for others, support of others, mutual support is an integral part of operating on the basis of solidarity. And then when that occurs, you have unity, but you don't impose unity, and you don't like wag your finger and say you're disagreeing, so you're not, you're destroying the unity. As a matter of fact, dialogue and resolution of conflict is the precursor of solidarity, and that creates the unity. So it's completely ridiculous and upside down to say to somebody, you're disagreeing with somebody in the group or some aim of the group, therefore you're whatever, you're against unity or you're preventing unity. That's like completely off.
Exactly. And
And Jane, go ahead.
I was just quickly going to say that nature thrives on diversity. So solidarity among diverse people is very powerful, much more powerful than a bunch of the same people, but the values have to be shared enough for there to be a willingness and a kind of love among them. Go ahead, Jason, you're going to say something.
No, it's Vee here. I was going to agree with you and say a plurality of healthy voices having a Socratic dialogue, but all having the best interests of the group at heart. When we've called out controlled opposition in the past, Jane and I, or chaos agents, they come back with accusing us of the same, of course, but also they say, hey, forget about our differences, we need unity. And that's a way of dumbing down the conversation, and it's basically saying, just shut up. We should, if we have disagreements, for example, if there's a vague, nebulous Save the Children campaign, which is not actionable, which children, how, and that is being used as a substitute for, say, Trudeau for treason, which is specific and actionable. We need to be able to confront the pivot or the bait and switch of the ideology. And sorry, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, but just being able to have independent thinkers and critical dialogues is very, very important. So as Jane says, solidarity, not blind unity.
Yep. And so the third phase of the communist takeover is our topic of today, which is to neutralize the opposition. And one way, and I'm sure people are going to see the familiarity with this to the Truckers Convoy 2022, the third phase in their quest for world domination to deal with those who have caught on to their game, and that is neutralize the opposition, create hate, revulsion, and scorn towards anyone who opposes them. This is from Lenin. That was actually instruction from Lenin. And then in 1943, the Communist Party put out a directive that says, when obstructors become too irritating, label them as fascist, Nazis, or anti-Semite. We must embarrass, degrade, and discredit our critics. And this will work. After enough repetitions, it will become fact in the public mind. So we're not just like interpreting what we're seeing. This is what they said they're doing, like publicly said they're doing both, like Lenin's statement and then this directive. And so the next step is getting masses into motion, which precipitates mob violence. They know that once they get demonstrators into the streets, it's easy to provoke a riot. And then when this occurs, then the state attacks. So they use police and military against. And this is something they want to give as a sign that we're in revolution. And then they've, recruited people to believe that, they're on the right side of it, and the government is all, which I didn't want to get into the specifics, but one of the things they do to try and get there is to make us lose complete confidence in our political system, in our rule of law, and our Bill of Rights, and our criminal code, our police, our courts, our military, and our government. Because that's what they repeat over and over again. All police are fascists. All police are corrupt. All the courts, all the government, like playing over a record that keeps skipping on the same tune. And they've been doing that since, like I said, that I'm aware of, since after 9/11. Those anti-fascist movement people who morphed into anti, who won't say the other word. uh, their main thing was to find people who were already having that kind of philosophy, and it was a philosophy that this is their sand, and this is what some people had already come to this idea, and if they didn't, you're putting out a net and trying to bring other people into it. And it's an idea that the whole system is their sandbox. They make all the rules, and all the rules suit them, and that's not true. This is our sandbox. These are our rules, and the corruption that we see, the things that are disturbing us, especially in the last few years with COVID, it's all illegal. It's all contrary to law, and it's all contrary to both natural law and Canadian law, both together. That's very, very powerful base to work from. But these people, oh no, it's all them, so they want it to collapse. So they want people to believe that they cannot expect any justice coming through our processes. And this is a really important concept that they repeat over and over and over again. And when they put on any kind of protests, they have people, bringing up on the stage, bringing up these things. That's why Jason would get such grief from them, because he was saying, "Oh, Bill of Rights," and also calling out the controlled opposition and their tactics and all that. So he got a lot of backlash over that. Okay, I'm almost done. I'm almost done at the end, and then I'll just turn it over. The next step is, let me see now. Okay, well, they think that if they can get people clashing in the street, that's the first sign of revolution. They're very happy about that. Also, part of their strategy was to use students in high school. They would put a lot of effort to recruit people. And and also once they start creating these incidences and they get the police reacting, then they stand back and go, "Oh, police brutality," and they create it. They create a like a whatever, like a riot situation, and then they stand back and they get the videos now these days and go, "There's another one. All police are bastards."
Yeah, it's staged, literally. Yeah. You want to say something, Jason?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, to Jane's point, but naming a name, Jane and I have talked about it many times, this Arthur Palowski, right? All your cops are fascists. Look what he's doing to me. He's arresting me. Now I'm brutalized in jail and all this. All your cops are fascists. Chris Guy's been arrested 28 times. That is a playbook for a lot of these people, right? To make you generalize that all your cops are bad. I said at Queen's Park, that's not the case.
Yeah. And then those people support the charter, and then surprise, they're not able to get any resolution through the charter, such as what's his name there, Henry Hilderbrand of the Church of God. He got it embroiled in conflict over he left his church open, and he got all these like really hefty fines. And then when he went to court, and he knew better because we all spoke to him and gave him all the proof to use the Bill of Rights, but he just ignored it. So when it went to court, they argued that their religious rights were violated because they had to be 10% of their population, 2 feet apart, mask on, no singing. And the court said, yes, your religious rights were violated. However, because of Section 1 of the Charter, that's a good enough reason. Pandemic is a good enough reason to override your rights. And then they go, see, we told you. There's no justice. It's all corrupt. So they're calling you, but yet they're calling you to action. What action? Revolution.
And Jane, if I may say, the 7-8 churches in Manitoba, as I gave an example of Queen's Park, it was the same thing, right? The judge said what you just said, that we know your religious rights and freedoms basically have been violated, but you know what? It's justified because we're in a pandemic. And as you said, that's Section 1 of the Charter.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we've had some wins, but I won't get into them today, but I'm at the end of my list. So those are the key features of their methodology. And so what I wanted to hopefully get from this point on is everyone's contribution to the methods related to controlled opposition, like what they're specifically doing, how to identify them, like their methods, and what they say. So what they do and what they say. This gave you the purpose, like this is the ultimate purpose. So I would like to discuss now the specific ways in which they bring that out, in addition to what we just already said, like the getting embroiled in these conflicts and then going to court with a bad defense and then saying, there you go. That's one. There's many more, but that's one of their strategies. So I'll put it over to you guys now, and just wherever you want to go with the controlled opposition. If you want to give like technical, what do you call it? You know, your report there that you found, the FEMA report, Vee, it has a bunch identified in there. Yeah.
So before we go on, if it's all right, I'll just introduce Norman, since he jumped on the stream, if you guys can hear me, just so that we can include you in the conversation, Norman. He's a retired firefighter who's been fighting his WSIB claim after a severe injury. He's an avid freedom fighter as well. He was one of the grassroots organizers of the truckers' convoy, despite what those controlled ops say about them being the leader against vax mandates for travel. In 2020, he made quite the stir when he attempted to place a private charge on Trudeau for obstruction of justice over the SNC Lavalin affair, with a related complaint to the USMCA. And that's a whole lot of letters that people probably need to know what they stand for. Currently, he is in the process of charging Trudeau with treason over the illegal implementation of the Emergency Act against the truckers' protests. So welcome, Norman. I just wanted to make sure. We still have guest 100. We don't know who you are, and it sounds like they don't have a mic. So then maybe there's no purpose to be here. And Vee, I just wanted to say you're sharing the same links over and over again in the private chat. Do you want to let me know what the purpose of that as well is in the private chat? And then one of them is controlled op, Children's Health Defense, by the way. So I can't help but say that. And then from there.
Sorry about that. I just, there's 5 links. One of them is the Themis report, which goes into very much infiltration of grassroots freedom groups, but it was in the United States. We need something like that for Canada. It hasn't been done as far as I know. And the other report, Jason would be interested in, because it's Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, the swarm theory. And you can read off the list. I just wanted to say, I've been kicked off 3 times because there's bad internet, so I kept reposting it. I thought it was lost.
Oh, no, yeah, I keep seeing it, so then, all right, so from here on, Jane, you wanted to look at some real specifics, illustrations of these behaviors that you've just outlined very, very well. And
I could start.
Go ahead.
Vee and I were involved with Norm Blanchfield at Castleman camp, like he's got a camp, and Norm was working with Dave and I with his charges for about 1.5 years, so we were quite familiar with his ideology and his methodology, stuff like that. And he was working for 2 months on developing a convoy, and he made many public posts that he was traveling across Canada, and other people were joining him and blah blah blah. And then he asked Dave Freedom to make a public video with him, like a live with him, and tell people that what he's doing is legal and peaceful. And Dave said, well, I don't know exactly what you're doing with the protests, so you'll need to send me some material. So he sent him a flyer that Dave didn't find very clear. Like it said, they want to remove all 300 and whatever MPs and like some other, but they were not like completely articulated. So Dave said, people could take that different ways, and you really need to get a better focus. So he asked him, what would you recommend? And Dave recommended that he deliver a letter to the RCMP on behalf of the truckers, because Norm was one of the original hardcore, very involved truckers in the 2022. And then he was back with the Rolling Thunder a few months later, and they've had his truck in impound since then. $70,000 truck in impound, over stupid charges. Like he didn't do anything illegal, but they just created nonsense. Anyway, that's what he's been on about. So Dave thought it would be a good idea if the truckers, because it's a convoy, went to the RCMP and delivered a letter. And we're not talking about storming, and we're not talking about 2,000 people like Dana Metcalf going to the police all at the same time. We're talking about just maybe 2 or 3 going into the building, delivering this letter. So Vee and I helped create the letter, and Vee also translated the letter and translated an incident report, a criminal incident report on treason that we created through Stand for Thee.
It was a letter to be handed into the RCMP to charge Trudeau for treason with a 20-page incident report.
Yeah. So that was the idea, and his attention came on him in an intense way, because he was getting about 800 views on his lives. It went up to 8,000. So there was a big interest in him doing this activity, and he put the letter on his page, and did 2 lives. He did a live with Dave, and then he did a live with us, and he was on track. And so I guess this what he was doing was not something that our opponents want. Okay, they don't want us to focus on actionable, like Vee was saying, actionable activity that we can potentially make some progress with. So a great big group of infiltrators hit the camp all at the same time and just basically surrounded them and took it over. And they changed the whole agenda. They said, no, it's not a convoy anymore. No. And it's not about, well, they don't even say it's not about, they just say it is about save the children. But they didn't say from what or from who or how. But their methodology was going to be walking downtown with no vehicle with a sign that says save the children. So in my view, they're even in the wrong place, because the issues with the children are the SOGI issues for school. That's provincial. So you don't go to Parliament Hill for that. So they don't have a well-developed public message, and they're not in a symbolic location. So it's like complete nonsense. And
can I ask a question, Jane?
Yeah.
So I'm just always curious, what kind of training would those guys get to just walk down the street with an ambiguous sign like that? Who's behind the scenes? Is it even possible to?
Well, I think that they're paid for under the and I mean, nobody's gonna come and fill in these blanks for me, so I have to just make presumptions. Mm-hmm. That at 19 what was the year of 9/11 again? Was it
2011?
2011, yeah.
Okay, no, 2001.
Okay, 2000.
Oh boy! Of course it was.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Man. No, so, wait, 2001? Right. Are you sure?
Yeah. Okay, so 2002, Canadian government came out with a piece of legislation called Anti Terrorism Act, and in there, 2 significant things. One is they're deploying individuals into the activist community to monitor for terrorism. That's A, and B, they'll use resources from other countries that are part of the UN network to come in their country to help them, which is what I think they did with the Convoy 2022. But anyways,
what appears to be happening, Jane and Beth, sorry to cut in, is that they're using Canadian taxpayer money, which was meant to be ostensibly anti-terrorist funds, to infiltrate grassroots freedom movements, spy on us, and basically subvert our message.
Yeah. And they've been doing this since at least 2001. And
right,
they
2
basically,
decades.
And they destroyed not just freedom movements. Like there was all kinds of environmental groups that were doing good work, well-focused, well-researched, and all that. It destroyed them all. Like if you think of Toronto was like, I wanted to move to Toronto because their action was so much more hard hitting and effective and all that. But Ottawa had some, and it's all gone through those activities. They infiltrate, and they've been trained, so they know how to subvert once they get in. So they know the techniques to get in and become the leaders. So they either redirect or derail, A or B. Either one is fine for them. So it's fine for them to change
right, and
what Norm's doing, Norm Blanchfield's doing. And the reason I thought of inviting Norm Traversy is because he's focused on Trudeau for treason. And these guys, obviously, get away from treason, get away from treason. And one of the videos that I want to talk about later, she actually says they've identified 52 charges that the government has committed crimes, but we're not doing treason or anything like that. And you know why that would be? Because if they are agents, if they're government agents and they're doing this subversive work and everything gets investigated and revealed, guess who else gets charged with treason? So no wonder treason is a bad topic. And plus, the treason, the evidence of treason is in our face. People know that there's treason. Like our CSIS has said, the country has been compromised. It's been infiltrated and compromised. The Chinese paid for the Liberals' campaigns, their election campaigns, and so it's pretty much out there that we've got some serious. And even Larry Brock made a statement that Trudeau has committed several crimes, and he included illegal implementation of the Emergency Act as a crime, not as a just misguided decision. Like he actually said in the House, said crime. So I mean, this stuff is out there. So that's a contentious item for them. Stay away from that. Stay away from that. Well, and they were quite intense. And all what set it off was that, like, we went there to speak with Norm because we saw that some of those people were arriving there. So I was concerned about it. And so when I got there, George Billings, Freedom George, came up and said, "Oh, it's not a convoy anymore. And it's about Save the Children. And we're going to walk downtown with signs at Parliament Hill saying Save the Children." I went, "Oh, for God's sakes." And he laughed, thought that was funny. Then I talked to Norm, and he was going on his live, and he turned it on me. I didn't even ask him to. He turned on me, and I was talking about Trudeau for treason, and he's shaking his head. Yes. And then Colin Big Bear comes over and says, "Stop the live, because we're having a meeting over here." So we went over to the meeting. Wasn't a meeting. It was their live telling the world that it's not a convoy anymore. Norm was developing a convoy for 2 months, and all of a sudden, not a convoy anymore. Now it's Save the Children. And they had their arm around him, basically like a trophy, like we took over the camp kind of thing. So after they made their statement, Vee pipes up and says, "Don't forget about Trudeau for treason. You can't save the children unless you save the country." And that was perceived as a threat of some sort. They grabbed his arm and told him, "Shut the heck up." And then I started, and we were both going off about it. And then I started saying, "They're infiltrators. They're all infiltrators." And then after that, Big Bear, Colin Big Bear, who's only been there for an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe maximum, he orders us to leave. And I said, "You don't own this property, and you can't order us to leave." So he instructed 6 people to grab Vee, grab him by the neck, and drag him off to his car. And then he said, and you can hear him on the video saying, "I'm leaving now, but I want to make sure that Janice and Jane are in the car with me." And they wouldn't let him move, and they
your little little dog was
yeah. So they jumped up on the front of his car and smashed the windshield. And with me, they were pushing me, grabbing me, smacked my phone out of my hand. And then when we got there, when we were already off the property, one of them ran up and spray painted my phone and Janice's phone. So all for having the audacity to say, "Don't forget about," and we'd worked for 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, and Vee did a lot. Like it took them a long time. He's very picky about translation, so he uses a high-end translator, but then goes through it all and makes sure that the French is accurate translation. So he put a lot of work into that. And anyways, that's where that went. But I think we were successful because they kicked Big Bear out the next day for being an infiltrator, and 10 to 15 other people. including the guy that smashed his windshield. And he apologized to me. Norm apologized to me, and
Good.
and he seems to have been protecting the camp after that. Like they're trying to pull him in different directions, and he's not doing it. They wanted to pull him into this these activities with Ron Clark and Dana Metcalf, but they didn't go for it. And then
Jane, if I can just pan out a bit, because we could go on for hours on details, but just high level. If you were Trudeau, Freeland, Lametti, and the first convoy was a PR nightmare, the last thing you'd want is a Trudeau for Treason campaign and a second convoy to hold the government accountable for the Illegal Emergency Act. That would be the nightmare. So the ideal operation would be to send about 7 or 8 agents and say, let's not make it a convoy. They ended up calling it a non-voy, and they just walked around. It was a walkabout. Yeah. And instead of making it Trudeau for Treason, they're like, let's change the message, like rebrand the slogan, because if we change it to something nebulous like, win back freedom or save the children, something generic, which is non-actionable, it will really distract, and then we will not be held accountable for beating up protesters, trampling them with horses, and taking away our rights to freedom of speech. And like Tiananmen Square, treating us like freedom of assembly is not allowed. And now, we've recently done some small claims. I just sent mine in for Jane. You can talk about that later, but it's
speech and
against
assembly.
Trudeau.
Yeah, speech and assembly.
Yeah.
And assault.
Yeah. So without getting, and there was George Billings, Colin Big Bear. Like there's so many. And what we believe, just to one last sentence. I don't want to take up too much time, but we believe that this was a very important operation because they had put many years and many agents and millions of dollars to pay for people. And it really would upset other operations. So they really worked hard to put all their agents on one spot, Chris Dacey and all their agents on one spot. And so I believe there, and Jane too, maybe you can expand that there's something bigger happening than just that particular day's event, that when we exposed infiltrators, there was something larger at stake.
Well, it looked like they were trying to build some kind, and this was against this. Norm Blanchfield was not part of this, and Dave and I really, brought it to his attention, and so did that incident that we had, which really made them start to see what the dynamics were. But there was all these groups, like revolutionary groups, converging on them, like all at one time. So I think they were planning to make some kind of a clash with the police, like for a psyop, like Adamson Barbecue or something. And us being there,
that's right,
and doing Trudeau for Treason, that was screwing things up, because that's very peaceful what we're doing, and very official.
Actually, when we called out on like 4 lives that there's infiltrators standing behind us, then they couldn't go ahead and do some fake violent clash. And they always have these psyops where they have these actors come in and clash with police, and it's on Rebel News, and these fake clashes.
Yeah,
and I think we disturbed that fun.
And Norm and his crew put their foot down too. Like they started to, first of all, they banned all alcohol and drugs after that incident, because there was so many of those people that had come there that were in the videos, like drinking and obviously crazed up. And also they started to screen people coming in, and they turned several groups away that were like looking for revolution or rising up and all these things. They said, no, this is a peaceful legal protest, you're not welcome here. And they seem to have done a good job of protecting from that kind of insurgent activity that I think they were being led to. And there was all little dirty trails being created to attach to it as well, which I think he successfully disassociated with. Before this clash that we had, there was a tape recording that was claimed to have been recorded from the convoy. So they're saying like Norm and company were involved with this, and it said that they wanted to take over the business section downtown Toronto, and they were going to have two lines, like one like sort of an open line, and then if the police came in to try and remove them, they would bring another line in and block in the police. And then people were saying, well, you can't really tell who that is on the tape and when was it made, and blah blah blah, kind of got discredited. So then Jody Ledgerwood and somebody else, I think the name was Corey, made a public statement that she was at the meeting when that discussion took place and confirmed that it was this group, and there was a member of this group that was speaking, and also added that they were also planning to apprehend MPs and then negotiate with the government with that. And this was all the dirty little, droppings that they're laying. And he had nothing
the typical
to do with
propaganda.
Yeah.
Jane, if I could just cut in, the typical propaganda parallels the original trucker convoy. They're trying to portray all these peaceful protesters as misogynist, and some type of racist, deplorable white supremacists. And in this incident, on this day, they really wanted to frame the movement as violent insurgents, rebellious. I mean, ideally terrorists, but that's such a stress. So they were just starting that these are freaky, violent people. And when we pointed behind us, there's infiltrators behind us. That, like, it's kind of like, in Black Lives Matters, when you plant someone to throw rocks and loot, but they're working, they're government agents, they're double agents, right? They're pretending they're. So we started saying, hey, there's infiltrators here. So we don't know, but we may have prevented some psyop where there would be some crazy violent clash to further try to throw shade on the peaceful protest and peaceful freedom movement.
Yeah, we didn't think we were doing that, but then when you look at all the pieces later and put it together, we may have inadvertently, like we were just trying to support Norm to maintain Trudeau for treason. That's what we went for. We didn't even anticipate that we were going to be in a clash. That just erupted by their activity towards us. But and I'm glad we did it one way or another. I think Norm's relatively safe now, safe from them. He understands, I think, how to separate or how to keep out of that kind of activity. And
So I was just going to invite Jason or Norman, if you guys would like to chime in at all.
Yeah, I would like to.
Absolutely.
I'm not a retired firefighter.
Okay.
I'm an ex-firefighter.
Okay.
I rescued someone from a truck wreck on my way to work, and I got severely injured doing that. I was in uniform, and they fired me because I was injured. I got no benefits, no WSIB, nothing. Lost my beautiful wife, my house, everything. And I thought, okay, I'm going after these bastards. And I decided to go after Trudeau as a man. And that's when Jane and I met. I told Jane that I was going after him as a man, and she liked that concept. In 2017, I tried to bring charges against the Workplace Safety Board, and the Attorney General, Yasser Naqvi at the time, had me arrested and thrown out of the courthouse for trying to do that. I think I met Jane in 2018, and in 2019, I laid charges against Trudeau for the SNC Lavalin affair, and I got a pre-enquête that was scheduled for September of 2019. I showed up. They said the judge was sick. Then they delayed it for another month. I showed up and they locked me out of the courtroom and had the hearing behind a locked door. I've got the transcript, and they stayed it for lack of evidence.
But they wouldn't allow him to bring the evidence in. He had the evidence with him.
I had the evidence.
You don't show it when you first go to the JP. You just tell them what you have, but then he's supposed to show it, like spell it out to the judge. But they wouldn't let him in.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me in, and they quoted the McHale principle for the amount of evidence needed to go forward. Well, I had Gary McHale standing next to me. I brought him in. After that, it kind of grew. And
actually, you know what? You could describe quickly what the bulk of the evidence for SNC Lavalin. That was an affidavit developed by Judy Wilson-Raybould, and it had everything in it, and she swore it. So it had transcripts of telephone conversations, emails.
I actually had the recordings of them.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, I had a crate full of evidence. Then in 2020, by this time we'd put together a 192-page brief. I wrote 6 pages of it, and Jane and her people did the rest. And I gave a speech on Parliament Hill to, I think, about 8,000 people, and gave a good speech. Then they followed me to the embassy. I delivered the package to the American embassy. 2 days later, I went to the Mexican embassy, charging Trudeau and the Canadian government with corruption under Section 27.5 of the USMCA. At that point, there were people like Pat King that I had met then. I met Chris Sky, quite a few people, and it became a king I was a big part of the reception committee for the convoy. Pat King led the convoy, but he did not organize it.
He's a loser.
I know. Pardon me?
He's a loser and a scumbag. I think you know that by now, I hope.
Yeah, but he's our loser and our scumbag, and he did what he was asked to do. He brought the convoy out peacefully, and it worked. It did work. It changed the world. So,
but we didn't need Pat King to do that. It was going to happen with or without him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm just telling you what occurred. I was working with 2 other people, 2 other ladies, for the reception of the convoy. We had booked an entire hotel, the Swiss hotel, for that. I'm friends with the owner, and I asked her not to book any rooms unless they said they knew me. So we had an entire hotel full of people that said they knew me, and we set up an operational command center there, and we ran it from there. Danny Bulford was security. We had someone for transport, someone for logistics, and at that point, I was a gopher. I was an errand boy, but I was there in the heart of it while it went on. And I'll also tell you that every evening I was reporting to a Major General in the U.S. Army to tell him what had happened. And he in turn was telling Trump what I'd seen. Now lately, the latest I've done is, what would it be, a week ago, Jane?
Yeah, about a week ago, yeah.
Yeah, I went to the Ottawa courthouse, and I went with witnesses, with video, and I had put together, I didn't put it together, we put it together, a document that Jane approved of, because I wasn't going to do it without Jane's okay, and went there to file it with the JP, and she didn't even read it, didn't look. She just glanced at it, and she said no, she was not going to take it. Her name is Louisette Girault, Girault, and she's a presiding justice of the peace. I looked her up online. She's got 2 petitions against her to put her out of office. She told me that what Trudeau did by illegally invoking the Emergency Act, she admitted that that was illegal. And she said, well, he did it to protect the government. And I said, that's not his job to protect us, not the government. And I said, I'd like this in writing, why you're refusing to take my information. And she said, no, I don't have to give you any reasons in writing. This is all being recorded. And you can ask for a transcript. And I said, okay, if this is being recorded, I'd like to tell you that I've been arrested for trying to get justice. I've been locked out of a courtroom, and now you're refusing to take my evidence of a treason. I said, I have nothing but contempt for this court. I'm in contempt of this court, and I have nothing but contempt for you. And that's on the record. And I told her, I said, this is not the end of this. I'm not going away. I'll be back. I said, see those people out there in the hall? They are all podcasters, and they have tens of thousands of viewers on the internet. And I said, I'm going to make you famous. Then I left.
Very
So
good.
that was a week ago. What
Well
I
done.
think, pardon me? Yeah.
Said,
So
well done, well said, well done.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I see my role as a disruptor. I just want to cause shit. Okay. And I'll charge Trudeau with treason. We'll see where it goes. But basically, I'm putting the justice system on trial. Let's see if it works or not. And I want to go back. If Jane thinks it's okay, I would like to have this Louisette Giraud charged with obstruction of justice and conspiracy to obstruct justice, and put that on the same document with the Trudeau treason, and go back in and say, hey, this is a new document now, new evidence. What do you think, Jane?
I was just going to interrupt. Jason, did you want to say something quickly?
Yes,
Saw
if
your
I
hand up.
may, is that Norm that spoke, or is it Norman?
Norman.
Norman.
I
Thanks
go
for
by
everything
Norman.
that you're doing, Norman, in the great fight. But I just want you to know, as you guys all know, this is about controlled opposition as well, right?
Yep.
The topic. And you can't trust, Norman, Daniel Bulford. Okay, I exposed him at Queen's Park in front of a huge audience in a very, I thought, powerful way, where I shut him up after that speech. He never did another public speech. He's on apparently Zoom calls. He's an ex-bodyguard, as you know, for Justin Trudeau, came out of the woodwork. And how do we know he's controlled opposition? Where's the circumstantial evidence? Well, Jane knows. He pumps up the charter, and he pumps it up like nobody's business. And I exposed him at Queen's Park for that. And he knows better. He's an absolute controlled operative. And reason, logic, common sense, you can't, trust an ex-bodyguard for Justin Trudeau. This is how it works. And we know who he works with. Vince Gersey's another controlled operative. Jane knows him. So let's call these people out, and let's talk about controlled opposition.
Keith Wilson. He's Keith Wilson's buddy too.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've had no dealings with Danny Bulford since the convoy. None. No dealings with Pat King either.
Great.
So I do know that during the convoy, Tamara Leach showed up around day 8 at the Swiss Hotel. And she apparently talked her way in there by saying that her life was in danger. Oh, yeah. I suspected her of being a plant from day 1, because she was not an organizer. She didn't organize squat. Nothing. I know who organized Ottawa, the reception in Ottawa, and she had nothing to do with it. I said to her at one point, hey, what's it like to lose $20 million in 3 days? And she shrugged and said, easy come, easy go.
Wow.
she was doing press releases in everyone's name, and actually negotiating with the police with no authority. She was there with another woman named Dagny. And apparently Dagny used to work for Obama and then the Ontario Liberals. And Dagny was writing press releases. And Dagny was there at the Swiss Hotel. And you remember, it's like 40 below out. And she's there with this really attractive early 30s woman. And she's dressed every day in a skin tight cat suit.
Wow.
It's
I'd like to see that.
Huh?
I'd like to see that.
Well, you wonder, why is she dressed like that when it's 40 below out? And I'm almost wondering if she was trying to provoke one of those, Neanderthal truckers into making some kind of move. Everyone, all those truckers were perfect gentlemen. There was one guy there at the hotel who came with 3 of his daughters, and every morning he was stuffing envelopes full of $100 bills. And he'd say to one daughter, okay, you do Albert Street, you do Metcalf, whatever. And they were going out and going to the trucks and saying, here's $100. Do you need more?
Oh, but guess what else they were doing with that money? They had to sign an agreement that they were a member of the Freedom Convoy 2022. And then all the ones
for
that
that money?
Yes.
That money.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And then when they signed it, then they gave their names to Paul Champ to go on the lawsuit. But what's really cool is the majority of the truckers turned the money down. Only 69 signatures on that, and all of them wouldn't have necessarily been truckers. Like Tamara's name was probably on there, and whoever.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And Keith Wilson, all that.
Okay.
So,
well, here
that's what I love the truckers about. Like I always say that
they're very independent.
They're smarter, smarter than the average bear, I would say. And they didn't fall for that. And these so-called, self-appointed leaders were trying to have meetings on each street.
Yeah.
And they would say their captains are coming out. And most of the truckers say, I don't listen to those clowns.
Yeah.
And they weren't, because they were trying to do many things over the time. One of them is getting to sign this, that they're a member of this group. And then the other thing, what was the other main item that they try to keep on circumventing the cause of the protest. Like it was announced at the beginning, and it seemed to be like generic. Like it didn't seem to be coming from any base of people. And the purpose was stated that it was about the jibby jab, mandates at the border. And then there was attempts to change it to be all mandates, and provincial and federal and everything, which would have destroyed their right to protest there, because it wouldn't no longer be an important public message in a symbolic location. And those attempts failed every time. And I was watching that because I have a background in protesting and so on, and I knew that's a necessary thing, and it wouldn't change. Like they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen, and they know that's why we're here, not that. So any public statement, I love that. I just that gave me such hope for this country.
Beth,
if I can just
yes,
cut
Norman.
in.
Just a second. Norman's trying to ask me a question, and I have a question too. Go ahead, Norman.
Okay, Beth, can you go on Google and type in my name, please?
Okay, I will do that. And then I'm going to put up this question because I don't want to let it go by. The same lady is asking, why is Pat a scumbag? Please explain.
I'll give some reasons.
Well, I'm going to just say one thing quickly. If you wanted to label the Freedom Convoy or disparage them, who would be the ideal leader? It would be somebody who has had a record of saying racist things or anti-Chinese things, or somebody who has had, they did want to label the convoy as racist and misogynist. So, you know, the CBC picked up that Pat King is the leader, but that is because they wanted him to be the leader, because he would be an easy man to disparage later. I think that go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I would
He's the
agree.
same guy that said his leg was blown off in military combat and had to apologize because apparently he fell off the roof of a house. That's the type of individual we're dealing with there.
Yeah, he did another video that said that the military was chasing First Nations women and children through the bush, trying to give them a vaccine. He got 450,000 views, and then the next day he said, "Oh, I guess I should have fact-checked that." And
Hey,
then
Pat, click the top link.
he also bragged that he single-handedly made the Alberta government abandon all their COVID measures, which was, and he knew that he was bullshitting, because what actually happened is they had announced several weeks before his trial that they were getting ready to do that. So that had nothing to do with his trial, and he lost his trial. But he said that the reason how he got them to abandon the COVID measures is because he got Dina Henshaw to testify that the virus was never isolated. And that's not true. He had given her a subpoena to go to court to testify to that matter. And her lawyers made a motion to quash the subpoena, because first of all, it was not signed by a judge, it was signed by a JP. And secondly, they said she has no germane information to present to the court about his charge. He was charged with being in a group over 25 or whatever at the town hall. And she cannot be compelled to discuss the issue of the virus isolation because he didn't file a constitutional challenge. So them abandoning the COVID measures were totally not his doing, and he lied and manipulated with people, and he still kept on going on about it months and months later. So I don't think he's controlled opposition, though. I think he's more like prostitute, because he does things that are, you know, and gives messages that are counter to our interests, but he doesn't execute his activity in a systematic way. Like he goes off, you know, and he does things that are even contrary to his own.
More of a chaos agent than a controlled, trained operative.
I like the word prostitute.
Chaos agent.
Yeah, I like the word prostitute better, because they're taking the money, doing something unethical. You know, that's what.
So one of my archetypes on the 8 archetypes of controlled I call it high-end hooker.
Oh, yeah.
So that they are on a track. They've got the public eye. They've got sponsorship and money pumping in, and then they don't want to give that up. So they'll skew their message to accommodate whatever controller says they should do that.
Exactly.
So we've got somebody in the room named Kenj, and could you guys please use your real name, because I can't tell whether you are supposed to be here or not, to whomever Kenj is, or maybe sorry, we can't hear you when you're talking, but I'll bring you on. I'll just take a chance that you're supposed to be here. Oh no, she's gone again. So the camera helped.
Beth, I have a question that something you just brought up. I have to ask. These 8 archetypes for controlled opposition, could you run through them? This is very fascinating. I haven't heard about this.
And I'm in the process right now of putting together a whole presentation. I just gave a workshop at the Anarchapulco event, and on this subject. So I'm sharing the screen recording. Anybody who would like to take part in that, you can go and click this link in the chat. I know it's only showing. I'll drop it on Rumble as well. And then you can, for free, hear that workshop where I talk about the 8 archetypes. I talk about the then 33 signs of controlled op that you can see the archetypes in. And I'm also going to teach a technique how to dissolve the opposition, not out there, but in here, so that you can get your head about you and your clarity, and not just be throwing around the word controlled opposition like it has meaning all by itself. So that's the link there. The 8 archetypes, if you want me to say what they are, I can certainly pull those up. So you've got the high-end hooker we already talked about. We got a candy man who sells fear or anger or some kind of doom porn that people get addicted to. You've got the grifters who saw a money-making opportunity in the movement, afraid people buy solutions, even if they're fake and gay. Excuse my language. You've got the one that I call Satan, who actually will know what they're doing. They had to sell their soul to the devil to stay out of jail or some kind of big punishment for having, taken people sideways or tried to get out of taxes or whatever. So the name Rob Bernard kind of came up. I don't know if he is this or not. I won't name others there. You've got the thanks to my good friend Paul.
Chris Guy is there.
You think so?
Yeah, I saw his paperwork for appeal on heavy duty drug charges.
Okay. Just to quickly.
Cora is his last name. Is that what it is? Christopher Stora, whatever. So it looks like he didn't do jail time for those.
Okay, so sorry, I'm just about done. I'll just name off the rest of the archetypes before I get off track here. So well poisoner is another name. The infiltrators that come and they make trouble and division and they waste time. And they see the two people working well together, like Jane and somebody, and then they're gonna wedge themselves in between and make sure they don't communicate very well anymore. Lots of experience with that one. We've got also the copycats and the clowns. Copycats just simply they see a narrative, they see it getting views on the social media, and they just do it. They may have no idea what they're doing. They're just repeating it. And then you got the clowns who outright weaponize the truth. They say the truth, but they say it in a way that is so ridiculous. They jump up and down on tables. They yell. They threaten police on their live broadcasts. They turn it into a circus. They throw over tables. Any normal person would be, any normal person would be hauled off for a psych assessment. But for some reason, they can get away with it on camera in the media. So that's my 8 archetypes there.
So Beth,
that was awesome.
You looked at the search results?
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. I apologize. We can't speak at the same time. It cancels the sound, but I'm hearing good things. Thank you. And so
Beth, I just want to say, absolutely brilliant. I've thought so long and hard about trying to describe these. I only had about 3 or 4. I'm just blown away. You've really captured, because I could think of examples of almost each one of these, and I hope to have more time for you to expand on those. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, if you sign up with your name and email, you will get on the list to receive it. I'm about this close from sending the workshop recording, the archetypes themselves. I'll give a slideshow that I created for the workshop, and all of the archetypes are named there. And then, what how I did research for this was getting on the phone with a variety of people that think along these lines. Jane would have been on my list, but we didn't get to it. And for every name, they could rattle off a whole bunch of people that fit the archetype. And that's how I knew the archetype was real, because you could put real names and faces to it. Does it mean you can say without a shadow of a doubt? There's always a shadow of a doubt. You're always going to have some uncertainty. You can't know somebody's name and heart and motive, and also it's a moving target. So you might know them in one moment, in one situation, and then you don't know them later. But anyway, so thank you. I appreciate that. This is my baby right now.
I would add one more, and that would be the paid agent, because their behavior is, they do some of those techniques that you're talking about, like to move forward their agenda, but they execute in a systematic way. Boom, 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 like a military operation. And
it looks like it's a full-time job.
Yeah, there's way less of them.
They're very organized. Yeah.
Yeah, but their
We
behavior.
call those the astroturfers, right? The fake grassroots. Fake grass is astroturf. That's one word for them.
Fake astroturfers. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My My take,
Sorry.
just very quickly, I'll say that was that all of these categories may or may not know. So if they're paid, they obviously know they're being paid to do something. But I will definitely, I like that fake astroturfers. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah,
can see
and
the ones we've identified.
the
Maggie Braun, and you can see that the execution of her purposes is very systematic. She works with Kellyanne Wolf, who's more like Pat King. Like they're obviously doing dirty work, but they go off. They go off the track. Like they're not stable, and I don't think they're actual agents. I don't think that they're hired and paid. And they put in the clock or whatever. But other ones,
Kelly,
you can see their behavior is very systematic. Like, for example, what's his name? Johnny Rowe. He's one of the Wellington Street guys. He's from Texas. You can hear his accent. He lives in Brockville, but yet every day he punches a clock like 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5 in the Wellington so-called, revolutionary group there. But at the same time, he systematically supports the narrative. The narrative, like for example, Chris Barber and Tamara Leach. The way they're approaching their convoy charges, they were not challenging the implementation of the Emergency Act. So in so doing, they're accepting that there was a blockade and an occupation. Okay, so that gives a very serious nature to what they're being accused of, as being the organizers of a blockade and whatever. So they're not challenging that, and they declined a jury, and they're using the charter. Well, that's the formula right there for conviction, because the court has already ruled that the emergency, now that's going to have to be re-looked at because of Mosley decision, but there was several cases, I think 25 cases altogether, where the court was accepting that the emergency was a good enough reason to override your rights. So if you're just using the charter, you're done. Like, you're not challenging the Emergency Act and you're using the charter. So in my view, they're like agents. So these other agents support that, saying, like what Johnny Rowe answered to that was, well, they don't have the time to do the challenge of the Emergency Act. Other people are doing that. And they're just trying to get rid of their charges because they want to run for office.
Jane, we should tell them I applied for intervener status in their case.
Oh, yes.
Right, Jane? I applied for intervener status. I jumped through all the hoops, gave all the documentation, and they gave me a date.
And actually, we should say it was intervener status for using the Bill of Rights.
That's right. And I wanted it moved to the Superior Court because they did not have proper jurisdiction at the Ontario Court. No inherent jurisdiction.
They're in the bastard court.
I wanted it taken to the Superior Court, and I wanted intervener status for myself and all Canadians, because all of our rights were taken. So what happened was, sorry?
It was Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. They're not. They haven't had a trial yet. So he wanted to intervene in the trial.
I wanted to intervene. I showed up with my associate Amina at the courthouse, and Tamara came up and gave Amina a hug and said, "It's so great to meet you in person." I guess they've been talking on the phone. And then she looked at me and pointed at me and she said, "What you're doing is very wrong." I said, "I'm doing this for all Canadians." Well, then I go into the courtroom, and her lawyer and Chris Barber's lawyer are sitting with the Crown at the same table opposing me. They did not want me on that case because I was going to take it and make it a Bill of Rights issue, not a Charter of Rights. And I was going to take it to the Superior Court, which had inherent jurisdiction. And the judge said, take a break for 20 minutes. Well, over an hour later, she came out and she said, I had no business there, and that it was between the Crown and the accused to decide how their proceeding would go forward. And I said, you violated my rights. I gave a speech and I said, basically this is all bullshit. But the fact that their lawyers opposed me intervening, you'd think they would want me to intervene. They'd want a jury. They don't. They want to be found guilty with time served. And that way they've got a precedent. And that's why they didn't want me there. So, Beth, did you do the search results on what I gave you?
Yes, and I was showing it, but you didn't say anything. So I just, do you want me to show it again?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. And just a reminder, please, to only speak one at a time because we have noise cancellation. They won't hear anybody speak if it's not one at a time.
Okay. Like I said, I'm a disruptor. And what I've done is I've found a glitch in the Government of Canada website. And I have copyrighted over 30 laws. I own the copyright on the Bill of Rights. I own the copyright on the Charter of Rights. I own the copyright on the Criminal Code of Canada. You can see there the Government of Canada acknowledges me as the owner. And they are selling me laws. I bought one last night too, the Crown Liability Act. And they're selling them for $50 a pop. And the reason is, I was told, it's because it's an unmanned website. And the stupid program doesn't realize it's allowing me to register laws, and I'm the owner. They're sending me paper certificates of ownership with a serial number and the signature of the minister. Take a look. There they are.
Yeah, can I ask a quick question? You've also got some controlled op co-owning these.
Which one would that be?
Can you see the highlight here?
No, I'm on a phone. Is that right? Which one would that be?
It to me looks like, I'll just say, Kellyanne Wolf.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? That's take a look at the date on it.
And you got also Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson.
Yeah.
You think she's controlled op?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that. I know Kellyanne. She gave a speech. She made herself Master of Ceremonies, I think, in 2021. And she gave a speech and she said that I was her surrogate father and that we talked every night for over an hour. I talked to her once in a year. Once in a year.
Something? Can I say something and relate to what you guys are talking about?
Yes, go ahead.
Please. Thank you. Just to let everybody know and people that are watching that, one of the organizing principles behind controlled opposition, of course, is all the millions of people like yourselves that I describe are change agents. We're trying to change society, right? And there's always going to be people, particularly the Liberal government, that oppose that change, right? So they're going to make it, this is controlled opposition in a nutshell, they want to make it as stupid, crazy, obnoxious, and unlikable as possible. And I would argue a Kellyanne Wolf Farkas /Farkas, she's used that way. You can see it, right, with her behavior. Unfortunately, on drugs, it looks like Chris Sky, real name Chris Sequoia. Many of them have two different names, if you've noticed. And again, it's not something you get a signature, as we know, right? It's circumstantial evidence. You connect the dots, how these opposition groups, because most of them are in opposition groups, right? Whether it be Hugs Over Masks with Vlad. As Jane said earlier, they divide, right? We see it. You just got to look, and we can break people out of the brainwash. I want to do a whole theme on controlled opposition at Queen's Park in Toronto. But unfortunately, we have a little wannabe dictator named Omari Taylor. He's a DJ, so he brings in his own equipment. And one day, about 2 years ago, when I was showing up on a fairly regular basis, he said, nobody can talk about controlled opposition with my equipment, or you'll never use my equipment again. And once we talk about controlled opposition in speeches, I believe I already put pressure on Lamont Daigle, for example, and Chris Sky. I didn't even have to say you're controlled. My speech was totally different than theirs, right? Lamont Daigle, he had to re-strategize. He ran off to Dundas Square with Kellyanne Wolf because I put pressure on both of them. Chris Sky, real quick, he didn't have the balls to come to Queen's Park when I was going there on average, every 2 weeks. He was traveling all across Canada. He only snuck in at Queen's Park when him and the establishment knew I was gone for 2 years. And then he snuck in, and unfortunately I couldn't be there that day. So anyway, I'm sorry I wound up. I hope I made sense there.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
that. Yeah, let Jason speak. Voice of Reason says he's being very patient. Truly.
Can I jump in to support Jason and say 2 quick comments on the
Thank you.
trucker convoy, because we would be remiss to not mention trucker convoy with controlled opposition. But Jason, what you experience with Omari is what happens. The boys with the toys make the rules. And in the trucker so the same thing in Ottawa, the Freedom Fighters Canada, they have the big expensive audio equipment and the trucks with the decal, and they're selling the merchandise, and they're just taking all the oxygen in the room. In the actual trucker convoy, and just quickly to note, the actual leadership were not actually truckers. Many of them, most of them. Tom Marazzo is not a trucker. Keith Wilson, who is he? Some lawyer for the JCCF, which is basically a betrayal legal firm that is against the people, giving gag orders to people testifying at POEC. Tamara, she's not a trucker. Like all these people, you mentioned Danny Beaufort. Thank you.
Yes.
There's so many. And you said for him, it's the charter that caught him. Yes, they're talking charter, red flag. Rocco Galati, Brian Peckford, Viva Fry. These guys, Viva, and you're promoting the charter. Even Jordan Peterson's in interviews with some of these guys, and they're promoting the charter. Come on, guys. Yeah. What about the Bill of Rights? And
Jordan. So, Jordan quickly is.
But the great news, if I may interject real quick, Jane Scharf will attest, as you guys may already know, that we've made so many inroads, and I give a lot of credit to Jane Scharf and the rest of you, that they don't talk about the charter hardly anymore. They can't, right? Because people say it's a piece of garbage. It's a communist-friendly document.
Yeah, Galati stopped saying charter.
Exactly.
And he took it off his website.
And
it'll only
one final point.
Constitutional rights.
Yeah. One final point about this convoy, and then I'll leave it to you guys. Sorry for talking so much. It's my final point is that, the boys with the toys make the rules. So at Coventry, and they knew the convoy was coming weeks in advance, and they had their agents and operatives prepared, and they had guys come to Coventry with generators and putting up tents and free food, and they had trucker donations here because, they froze the crypto. The last thing the government wanted was a well-funded, long-winded protest going into the spring.
Right.
They wanted to steal all the money. So once the Grinch stole the crypto and they froze the give, send, go, well, now we got to get all the donations and even like barbecues and toilet paper, whatever was donated. So at Coventry, there was a sign, trucker donations here. And we know that there was about 12 or 16 agents that we know of. One of them was named Carl, and they were pulling in 20,000 to 40,000 a day. People would drive up with cash. How do I get money to the truckers? This was not audited. And when money is donated for a certain reason, and Jane can attest, this is embezzlement. And they didn't. And Jane, maybe you can explain a bit more because you were there, Jane. Maybe explain a bit more.
I would call it fraud because they took it under false pretenses. The money didn't get given to the truckers. Now, I'm not saying zero, but not anywhere near the percentage that we saw that was being brought in there.
$500,000 to $1 million of donations, and there's no accounting. And when we asked the people involved, they promised they'd sent.
I can tell you one big red flag that I saw when I first went to Coventry. They had 2 or 3 guys at the gate, and they were telling you can't go in unless you know somebody that's already in there and they can vouch for you. And I was like, well, I did have somebody to let me in, but I started telling everybody, you better stop doing that because that means you're occupying. You can't, because it's public property. It was on a parking lot attached to the ballpark, which was City of Ottawa. So I said, it's nay on that. And people listened because the majority of the people that were in there doing volunteer work, like making the food and passing out the food and all that stuff, they were good-hearted people that were trying to roll up their sleeves and, you know, give assistance. So they listened by and large. And then the day of, like, and here's another one with Pat King. 2 days before they shut down Coventry, Carl called me and he said he wanted me to talk to the police because the police have given them a message. So I go talk to the police and they said the city is no longer going to let you have this encampment here. Yeah, so you have to roll up the sidewalks basically and close it down. So I said, no, it's public property. They have an important message. It's symbolic location, blah, blah, blah. So you can't legally do that. So was my opinion of that. But Carl, regardless of that, he went in and told everybody, oh, sadly, we have to close it all down now. And he told the volunteers to put all the food in the trucks and go home. And then I think it was the next day, Pat King had asked all the truckers to go with him on a whatever convoy around the airport. And actually Big Ed picked it up and it didn't happen.
Ed Jamasic, excuse me, Jane?
Yep.
Okay.
So what happened was the Ed caught the play because he realized, like, if all the trucks are gone and they're already warning us that they're shutting it down, that's probably why they're removing the trucks. So he went to the truckers and said, oh, no, don't move. And they did. Some of them had already left when he saw it, so he couldn't do anything about that. But he was able to get about half of them to stay. 2 of them actually weren't out of the parking lot yet, and they came back. So there was about 7 trucks still there. And then there was intensive pressure on the guys at the gate to block the gate again. And then, but so many people in there would just go up to them and say, no, don't do that. You know, you can't block the gate. So very shortly after, Pat King came in, and then Henry Hilderbrand and his son came in, and then a police car came into the parking lot and went by the gate, and it was open. And then they look up and they see the trucks are still there. So they gave thumbs up, like the officer gave thumbs up to the guys. And they felt that, you know, they recognized what we were doing. We were not locking or blocking the gate, and the trucks are still there. So in the meantime, they had shut down Coventry, and they had brought in those bus loads, I think 3 bus loads of those yellow green jacket police officers, and they had spotters up on the roof of the hotel. And soon as the cop came in and did that and went thumbs up, he goes back. They opened up Coventry. All the bus loads of police went, and the guys on the roof went. And then soon as that happened, then Pat and Hildebrand and his son left. So they had no business there. They were just going to try to be in the screenshots of the closure. Crazy. And I don't know how he'd know that or why he'd do that. And he might have been manipulated into it.
And Jane, they had women accepting donations as the front. Yeah. Like one was putting the money in her Bible.
Yeah.
Just be careful. One at a time, you guys. Nobody can hear anything.
Okay.
No, there was some women who were tasked with collecting the money and then bringing it back to the 2 operatives who were controlling the funds. And one of them was, because, you know, you're going to give your money to a female more likely, I don't know. And she had a Bible, and she would put the money in her Bible. And it was a bit of a farce. A lot of the container of donations moving from banks, from Castleman or Bank Street South back to Arnprior, back to Castleman, somewhere along the lines, shifting the donations, moving them, they disappeared. So it was all planned. This whole thing was a staged operation. So 2 of the undercover agents wore wigs, and we could tell it wasn't their real hair. We knew they were agents. Like, there was some very obvious people involved.
Don't talk about hair, please. Sorry.
Kidding.
That's all I have to say. Go ahead. Sorry, guys.
There was
Beth, I had that question for you too, Beth.
Yeah, Carl also did a couple of, trying to pull stunts to discredit. Like the one day it was really cold and he got everybody outside to listen to a speech. And his speech was that he's organized a march, and the march, they're going to march onto the Queensway and walk up the Queensway. And it was cold and like, what are you doing? Like, that's going to be like, it's illegal to walk there. And he's like, well, so what? And I said, it's illegal because it's dangerous, because you have wind currents. That's why it is. So anyway, he didn't do it, but I had to turn myself inside out and backwards to confront him about it. And he was doing things like that all the time. And he was one of the ones promoting to keep the gate blocked so that nobody could come in. And see, if they would have shut it down that day that I just described, they would have had the excuse because it's an occupation, and the trucks make it difficult for them to shut it down. So if they had have all left for their march around the airport, and Pat was the one that called it, but he wasn't even going to it. He was going in to be, I guess, getting in the screenshots of it getting shut down, which didn't happen. So they took off. So they didn't have any other purpose to be there.
So I'm going to jump in here and just let you guys know I've got about 10 entire minutes, less than about 9 minutes now. And would you like to, as a group, start to draw some conclusions? Some, the stories are very interesting and, of course, illustrate what you're talking about. I have my own take on it. Again, if anybody's interested to learn the archetypes, learn the signs and tools to internally resolve opposition so you can create and get on with the good project, whatever that is, fighting in court, Norm, for example, whatever you're called to, getting the word out, Jason. Vee, I need to get to know you better, I think. And so should we take the last 10 minutes to just kind of like coalesce it and how do people, I know people are really grasping that they're saying like, oh, there's too much to digest here or so much to digest here. And then how to help assist people to walk away and feel like they have more skills, they have more, and they've got more resolve. And because this isn't just about pointing fingers at everybody and going like, you're controlled up and you're controlled up. I know that's tempting and I've been there and I've done that. But what could we offer people that would be a little next level? Right?
I've got something.
I've got something too. Go ahead.
Good.
Okay. Quick story. There was a fighter pilot, an American fighter pilot named Colonel Boyd. And during the 1950s and 60s, he was an instructor. He taught other fighter pilots. And they would go up to joust, and he would bet them a steak dinner. And he always got a steak dinner. And they said, well, how come you always win? And he said, I use something called the OODA loop. And he says, everybody and every animal, everything's got an OODA loop. And if you get inside your opponent's OODA loop, you'll win. And that is observe, orient, decide, and act. And if you can do that quicker than your opponent, you will win. So that is now taught in military colleges. It's taught in business schools. Donald Trump uses that. He talked about it in his book, The Art of the Deal. And that's what I try to do. If Trudeau passes a law that I don't like, I don't protest. I buy it. Now what's he going to do? You see what I mean? It's indirect is what I would say, and anyone can do it. That's it.
Very good. I appreciate that. Who was next?
I have something to add to the OODA loop very quickly. And this is my closing remarks to the listeners, is that do not be disheartened or disillusioned, because there's a lot of deception going on, and we're just beginning to lift the veil, and it's really disturbing, but the truth is important, okay? And there's a lot of grifters out there with the OODA loop, and the neo-media cabal is the first thing you got to be aware of, and that's the Tucker Carlsons or the Russell Brands or Glenn Greenwald, Joe Rogan. And something in closing, the phenomenon of mirroring is particularly insidious what does that mean? So, for example, you take RFK Jr. and he's, writes a book about the real Anthony Fauci, but years before that, you had Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, and he basically literally steals his slogans. Vivek and the paid controlled opposition will steal your thunder. Now, Jane, you have a few examples even recently.
Yes.
People are taking the bill, a lot of the stuff Jane's saying. And so very insidious is this AstroTurf mirroring. And hopefully we could do a show on that later, maybe, Beth.
Yeah. I was going to go through actually 4 videos. Was it 4 or no, 3 videos?
So sorry, Jane, I'm down to 5 minutes now. So
okay, I wasn't going to go
share
them.
links.
I was just going to say, if they want to have my analysis on those videos, I think they're both controlled opposition, Ron Clark and Dana Metcalf. One is East-West Convoy, which is Ron Clark, and the other is the Million Charges, the Real Accountability Program with Dana Metcalf. So I've broken the videos down to show where there's evidence that these are controlled opposition. So if I leave my email, people can contact me and I can send them link to the videos and a link to my breakdown. I was going to do it on the show, but it's too much for right now.
Alrighty. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's really been interesting, to say the least, getting messages from all sides and a little infiltration in the chat itself. It's never a boring world in this arena.
Can I say one last thing, or not enough time, my dear?
Yes, please go ahead, Jason.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
There was an astronaut named Alan McDonald. Dr. Sheaves talked about him during the 1985, shuttle catastrophe. Alan McDonald didn't sign off on the launch because the O-rings, he knew, there was a problem. They'd never been tested. So before he died, just a few years ago, apparently he said, the most important thing in life is to tell the truth at the right time and to the right people so you can affect change. And finally, I'll just say the great news, research shows 20% of people, again, I described, they're like you, they're change agents. They wake up every day, they say, how do I change the world? Research shows 30%, you'll never change their mind. And a lot of the mistake, and I made it, a lot of us change agents, we want to turn over that 30% and you get burned out. But 50%, and that's who we should focus on, I think, a lot of the time, 50% research shows are on the fence, well-meaning, sort of positive people that we could potentially educate, get them on our side. That's 70%. And I believe that's another reason why the cowardly establishment out there, a small group, they're always trying to create controlled opposition when we're trying to build a real bottoms-up movement. So let's build a bottoms-up movement, and thank you, everybody, for what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. So yeah, it's a lot of messages going around right now. So I will invite everybody to, if you haven't already subscribed to one of the channels that you're on, either on Rumble or even X or Rockfin or Fakebook, then I'll invite you to do that to help me to fight the censorship that I experience here. I do help people with the internal battle, because honestly, you can push around details all day long. And for every detail you guys can share, somebody's going to come along and say that's not true. And this is not about calling everybody controlled up. I'm saying learn the signs so that you yourself can navigate, and like the voice of reason just said, so you can be your own hero. Don't look for the heroes in this world, and don't get lost in the minutia and the detail and the crap that all can be debated also, because that is a trap for your good mind that otherwise could be working on real solutions. So I appreciate everybody's presence here so much. And I thank you as well. I am going to be on again with several interviews coming up. I've got Charlie Robinson from Anarchapulco is going to be there. It's not from Anarchapulco, he's from Denver, I think. And Steve Falconer, and probably people are just going to go, oh, they're all controlled up. And it's, that's how that goes, because I'm the first one to say this. But you can check in if you'd like to actually visit my work and see how can you go inside. How can you do this work inside, not pushing around only the furniture on the Titanic that's already going down? How can you actually get your power inside yourself? And I'm speaking to all the people who think they don't need that. And I speak this because I need that. And I know that. And so this is where the true power lies. If you get the power inside, you become uncontrollable. You cannot be tricked. You're not going to turn to and trust the wrong people because they're nice to you, or they blow smoke up your butt and they like your archetypes, or whatever it is, right? So we're here to be the hero on our own journey, and that's what I help people with. You can visit bethmartins.com. You can also, if you want to take part in the Archetypes of Controlled Op that I am putting out, I will share that link one more time. Sorry to get mad here, but this is like a lot of messages coming to me right now, you guys. And then I already shared that. Where the heck is it? It's coming up. So that's my reason for doing all of this, and we find our power that way, from the inside out. And thank you very much, Sane Lady, for coming. I miss seeing you every day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye for now. Bye.
This has been great. Thank you.
Okay. Fantastic. Bye.
Thank you so much, Beth. Let's do it again anytime.
Okay.
Do it again anytime. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye for now. All right, everyone.